tossing around a certain idea the last few days. Tried writing about it. It didn't really materialize into anything it was worthy of sharing. So I'm going to try the video version and see how it comes out. The idea is the story of the fool and the rebel. General commentary on two paths to living. On the one hand, we have the fool, person that is entrained, entertained, educated, and informed by and inculcated through the mainstream, whether it's education or science, philosophy, religion, what have you. They live their life by consensus reality. They live their life by established science, established narratives about what is real and true. They go along to get along. They are educated by the mainstream news, media, Hollywood, etc. So everything that they believe and understand and know about life and the nature of this reality is shaped by that consensus narrative, as it were. And why wouldn't you? It's easy, it's easily available, it's accepted by everyone, it's established, it's spoken about every day in every form of medium, it's taught in every classroom, in public education. It's affirmed and confirmed in every headline that you hear in the news. It's repeated in all the popular TV shows, films, comic strips, and the like. It's spoken about and written about in opinion pieces in major newspapers. It's confirmed and affirmed in medical journals, scientific journals, science and technology magazines. Everybody's on board with this story. So what sense does it make to think otherwise? What sense does it make to question any of that? Why would they lie? Why would the government purposely steal money and purposely create campaigns to terrorize and impose ideas and mandates and restrictions and lockdowns? Why would they do that if it wasn't for our best interests, the safety and security, the protection and proliferation of the human species? Why wouldn't they have only our best interests at heart? And this is the mind of a fool. And they can excel. They can do very well. They learn how to fit into the marketplace and find their particular niche in the realm of capitalism, the realm of money and material acquisition that runs this planet at this time. And they find a way to train themselves in such a way to offer something that the market supports. And they create what is called earned living. They earn a living. They earn a right to live and exist in this society by playing along. Why wouldn't you? Why would you go against that? What kind of a crazy person would do that? Well, we know who would do that. It's the rebel. The foolhardy. That the foolish would consider the conspiracy-minded, the truth-seeker, the dissident, the heretic who dares speak against dogma and organized religion and organized science and organized banking cartels and organized government. How dare they question that? What is wrong with those particular fools? Says the fool. The rebel, for the most part, we're born that way. I'd probably consider myself one, obviously, given the nature of everything I've written about and spoken about over the last 30 years of my life. That has, been presented in many ways over the years, whether it's through music and my writing, some books, blogs, these videos now. So I would certainly fall into the rebel category. What's a rebel? Well, rebel sees things differently. They, right from the get-go, feel like things are kind of off. Something is not quite right about the world story, the world script, the grand stage, theater, arena that is our reality construct. Something's always felt a little bit off, and everybody always seems to have to lie about just about everything. Little lies, little white lies to really, really, really big lies. And the more they research and look into and analyze these things, the more it seems that lying, deception, distortion, and such is part of the game. But that goes against their very nature, that goes against their very makeup. And that causes them chronic pain, suffering throughout this life, because they don't know exactly where do you slot that in? How do you reconcile that? Where do you put it in to your daily routine that, oh right, I have to remember that it's okay for people to lie and deceive and distort things. It's okay for people to believe in an upside down and an inverted and backward notion of reality. It's okay to believe in nonsensical and superstitious and ridiculous things about the nature of this realm and what's above us or below us, what's beyond borders and boundaries. It's okay not to question, why there's a perimeter at 60 degrees south around all of what we perceive as our reality of our world, of our map, given certain representations of it. Don't worry about what's beyond there. We're safe here. They know what they're doing. They're protecting us from ourselves. Why would you question that? What kind of an idiot would question these things? And so the rebel, not being entrained, entertained, educated, informed, brainwashed and indoctrinated, inculcated by the mainstream, they have a different path. It's a bumpy road. Many times, perhaps perpetual times, a certain level of, uncertainty. Not really sure where they're supposed to fit in. At the same time, knowing what they know, learning what they learn, no matter how much they study, research, and pick things apart, how many rabbit holes they go down, and how many conspiracies they research and get to the bottom of, there's no end to it. They never really find satisfaction or satiety, because every answer or seemingly true thing that they discover, discern, and comprehend only introduces 1,000 new directions, questions, and curiosities, and concerns, and evident lies and inversions that the mainstream presents. It never ends. So there's no perfect formula, there's no balancing or equivalence to what they see the other side of this argument to the fools, and engaging in and being oblivious and blind and, ignorance is bliss sort of thing. They're living their lives without any sort of worries and concerns about these things. At least that's one way to look at it. So this isn't so much about who's right, who's better, who's living their best life and such, because that's a purely individual, unique, specifically to each individual one of us. I can't judge anyone for how they choose to live, or if they choose to come here to be a fool or a rebel, because it doesn't matter. It's a choice. It was a choice made elsewhere, obviously. We come in with certain prepackaged options, of course. We come in with certain coding, certain ideas, certain propensities, probabilities, potentialities. We're not necessarily a blank slate, because that doesn't really make sense. Why would we by default lean into being the rebel or the fool if there wasn't some sort of predestined idea about that? And you can pick that idea apart all you want and interpret it through your spiritual, philosophical, religious lenses all you want. Again, that's completely up to the individual to decipher and discern for themselves. We're talking about principles here, as always. There must be some guiding influence that came along that decided ahead of time, we're going to pursue this life in this way. For me, I chose the rebel, dissident, heretic sort of perspective, procedure, practice, process. And I've observed family and friends who did the opposite. They chose what I view as a fool's path. But that's my opinion, that's my view. I'm not saying it's right. It's just a perspective. It's an opinion. And we all have those, don't we? And we educate our opinions. We inform our opinions, again, based on what we choose. Are we going to choose to be entrained, entertained, educated, informed, brainwashed, indoctrinated, etc., by the mainstream? That which is everywhere, easy to access, that which Google doesn't curate or block, that which YouTube doesn't curate or block, that which the algorithms don't gatekeep and push away and push to the fringes. It's right down the middle. You don't have to go hunting for it. It's there every single day, every second of the day, to remind you of No, this is reality. This is established reality. Why the hell would you question? What's the matter with you? Get on with your life. Go out and make some money, pay your taxes, have some kids, get some jabs in your arm for safety and security, for immunity from those invisible things that are gonna get you. And then there's the opposite of that again, right? Everything about this world is duality, polarity, magnetism. Listening to the Kabbalion recently and noticing once again that a lot of my philosophy and perceptions and perspectives on this life circles and orbits around the idea of hermeticism. And there's a lot of ideas that resonate there, certainly, but it's not complete, Get through most of the book, and it's a lot of filler and fluff and interpretation, as there will be in any of these, hypotheses and treatises. Again, like it is with all things, even, if you're watching my videos, reading my blogs, or reading my, chats with the AI bots and such, take from it what makes sense to you in the moment, what resonates in the now. Discard the rest. It doesn't matter, because you just keep walking. You'll discover more, learn more, unpack more, figure out more as you go, and keep walking. Life's too short to get hung up too much on any one particular belief system or ideology or anything that's too stringent and locked in like that. Unless, again, this is my opinion, but if you need something like that, if you need that sort of black and white, crystal clear sort of structure, if you can suppress your curiosity and wonder and childlike spirit, power to you. Most of us can't do that because we're lying to ourselves. We're putting, this artificial ceiling and boundaries on our expression and our ideas and what is possible. But some people need that structure, at least for a time, and that's fine. Carry on, keep walking. You might not need it down the road, and tomorrow you might completely shift your perspective. Something else might shock you just enough to wake you up from that complacency and spiritual laziness, as it were. And it doesn't matter. One way or another, the days are going to go. Hours are going to pass. Seconds are going to tick away. And you may or may not have regrets come the time when your avatar is about to expire. But as we well know, in general, every one of us will have some regrets and wish we would have and such, simply because that's the nature of this reality, because the polarity, duality, things that pull us away from our path and distract, siphon, parasite, and predate on our energies, they pull us left, right, up and down all throughout this life. And it's just far too quick to be able to figure it all out. When that time comes, we'll be able to look back very quickly and say, yeah, I wish I would have. But it doesn't matter. Believe what you will about this life, the next, or however many lifetimes might be happening now, or could still happen down the line, and the nature of this reality and what you think this place is all about, and how you might be recycled and come back again to explore it anew from a different perspective. Perhaps a different culture, different nation, different language, different body, obviously. Different avatar, different temporary vessel. In the here and now, whether you're a fool or a rebel, doesn't matter. Neither is right and both are right. That's the beauty of this place. That's the whole point of it. I think one of the entertaining ideas, this whole fool-rebel dichotomy, is those who awaken partway through their journey. They've perhaps had some success and learned some of the ways of the market and capitalism and the mainstream. They understand how to play within certain elements of that realm, and they might have done exceptionally well. And then they're shocked awake, or have, gone through their dark night of the soul, whatever it might be. Then they fancy themselves a rebel, a dissident, a heretic, and they start speaking and writing and talking about all the things that, the people on the other side of the fence have known their whole life. And because they were trained in the system and the mainstream, they know how to, collate, synthesize, reappropriate ideas, reintroduce ancient knowledge and lore and wisdom, cherry pick the best things based on, algorithms and market testing and all these other things. So they know how to design the right kind of video thumbnails and book covers and all of the other professional perspectives, ideas, and calculations that one can utilize to maximize returns on putting effort into something. So if you're going to put money into it and time and energy, you still have to earn a living. And since they came up through that system, they know very well how to take advantage of that. But the same temptations will remain, right? Same temptations that were always there and that had them going down that path in the first place. The money, material gains, the applause, the adoration, awards, the Nobel Prizes and the literary awards and all these things, and the orders of empires and such that these people get for their contribution to cultural narratives, for their contribution to society. And when you simply look at any of these things critically with any sort of an adult process, you'll see that all of these plaudits, awards and such are simply rewards for working as part of the machine, as part of the system, as part of this capturing and mind controlling and narrative manipulating operation that's ongoing. And as ancient as time, the rebels, the dissidents, and the heretics don't get these kinds of awards. Or they'll get it posthumously and such, due to some sort of uproar or what have you. And posthumously, of course, they are no longer a threat, are they? They're never going to write another word. And those who profit and know how to, again, take advantage of the memes and the t-shirts and the books and the repackaging of all the wisdom, especially of these heretics, dissidents, and such, the rebels that came before. You can repackage these things and strip out all that heretical nonsense, that controversial, water it down and such, repackage it so that it can be sold anew, more in line, safer, curated to fit in with the mainstream. It can touch and bounce against the boundaries, but it'll never paint outside the lines, right? And that's the beauty of these things. The beauty of all these artists and geniuses of the past, all these higher-minded researchers and authorities, philosophers, authors, and the like that are completely harmless now that they're gone. Those that want to take advantage of marketing their wares and their paintings and their books and their words well after the fact, when they can no longer defend themselves, or you know what I'm saying. It's just the nature of the beast, the nature of what is capitalism, how this world works. So when you see these fools that are kind of sitting up on the fence or acting as if they hear you, they see you, they understand the other side of the argument now, just be wary. If you need a savior, you're going about it wrong. If you need someone to teach you and tell you and inform you about what's real and true, you're going about it wrong. If you're dependent in any way on any sort of cultural, social, philosophical, spiritual authority, scientific, medical, otherwise, you're doing it wrong. Those are starting points, beginning points, first pages, beginnings of chapters, but not the whole story. The rest is up to you. The rest is a personal journey. The rest is a personal evolution. Your apocalyptic, unraveling, revealing, unveiling process, which is completely independent and unique to you. So you can't stop at any of these points. Fool or rebel doesn't matter. Eventually, all roads lead home. All roads lead to truth, one way or another. We will be reminded, we will remember, whether it's in the last seconds of this life or perhaps the instant we pass on to whatever is next. We will know, we will remember, and we'll probably have a good chuckle about it. But in reality, there will be no emotional reactions whatsoever, because those are only relevant here on the ground. Anytime we try to anthropomorphize that which is higher self and beyond and into the spiritual or astral or whatever is beyond the physical is child's play and rather arrogant in my view, regardless of who's reported back from the other side and had these near death or life between lives experiences and such. Those are all filtered through certain perception filters. They're filtered through the same programming and conditioning and parameters and boundaries established in that lifetime. And without any direct experience and such, we don't really know what it is. We can only defer to someone else's experience, which has been interpreted and then reinterpreted by someone else in the questioning, in their representation. It's not the original source. And even the original source has to be scrutinized, obviously, as I'm saying. Because you didn't directly experience it, you're taking someone else's interpretation of an interpretation based on a lifetime of certain perspectives, perception, and interpretations. And that's not the truth, is it? So if I have a particular recommendation in all of this, is that you should go all in. And I've spoken about this before. Whether you choose to be a fool, a rebel, or anything in between, or neither. I mean, there's other ways, certainly, to experience this life. And some of us are going to be here for just a few instants, if at all. Some of us will be here for 80, 90, 100, 120 years at most, generally. And everything in between. So, completely up to you. But why not go all in? Whatever path you choose, because the only way to the truth is through the story. And you chose to come here. You chose to be here. Whatever situation, circumstance, or reality construct is being presented to you, you chose to experience it. Own that fully. If you hate it, fucking hate it with everything that you are. If you love it, just love it with everything that you are. If you can't stand the daily frustration and the grind and the annoyance, soak it up. Be annoyed as much as you possibly can. Go through it and find the other side. Find the other aspects. Delve into the wider spectrum of that story and that experience. Don't just, I'm kind of annoyed, but I can put up with it. Come on. Go all in. Shake things up for yourself. If you're kind of feeling numb and depressed and frustrated and stuck, shake things up. But just eat it up. Whatever it is. Good, bad, black or white, and everything in between. Because as I've been saying, nothing's on a set schedule, perhaps, except maybe your expiry date. And who knows? You don't know, generally, in a conscious way, when that may occur. And then, in that flash of light, in that instant, when you do a review or whatever you might have to do after the fact, it's too late. You can't necessarily back up, unless maybe you can. Who knows? Maybe there's ways you can jump around your own timeline. I don't know. Certain events that happened in my life where I should have been expired, and yet I chose either to come back and continue and go through years of pain, whether it was injury or something from an accident. There's all sorts of different ways to perceive and interpret and add, spice to our story, as it were. There's so many different ingredients and angles and perspectives and perceptions that we can have of these things. But it doesn't matter. It's fluid. Just keep on moving. Keep walking. Keep dancing. Keep yelling. Keep screaming. Keep swearing. Keep hugging. Keep, experiencing every last bit of it. All that you can in this particular human expression while you're here. It'll be gone in an instant. And then after the fact, it's too late to... Well, that really, wasn't as bad as I thought. I just kind of got stuck in that particular mind warp, or that particular self-imposed boundary, barrier, what have you. That really wasn't that bad. I just made it out to be a much bigger problem than it actually was in reality. And we all do that. Dependent on our culture and circumstance, of course, we'll have different ways and expressions of how we go about blinding ourselves and being oblivious to certain things that should be obvious, that are only really obvious once you get out of that and get the 10,000 foot view or what have you. If you're able to do that while you're still here, if you're able to find those meditative pauses and those moments where you can actually take a breath and dissociate from the story temporarily to gain a fresh perspective, alter your perception, that might help you reorient, realign, steer your ship a little more toward what you actually want, what you desire, what you need, and all the rest of that. So if you're going to be a fool, be it outright, 100%. If you're going to be a rebel, be it outright. If you're going to be an artist, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to list everything that you can be, because you know what drives you, what dreams you may have had, what aspirations. Usually, in our childhood, in those earliest years, up until the early teens, when everything about us kind of changes with chemistry and all the rest of it, and hormones and development, and we can forget or shelve or put aside these dreams and aspirations, or we can dive in, and maybe we have pursued these things in earnest. That's excellent. And only you can really know whether or not you pushed yourself, stretched yourself, and broke and rebroke and strengthened yourself, and achieved what was possible, and challenged what was possible. Because as we know, those, these glass ceilings and artificial boundaries and barriers are introduced and imposed and offered from every direction, in every society, in every sort of circumstance you can be in. Every potentiality is being explored by someone. And imagine, if there is upwards of 8 billion of us, and the potential multiple lifetimes that could be happening for everyone. Off the scale kind of numbers, but there's no point. It's irrelevant. The point is that every version of a human life that can be expressed and explored on this earthly plane is being explored. Everything from a tribesman to a trillionaire family heiress, and everything in between, and every other life expression. Bacterium on up the chain. Energetic, magnetic, interdimensional, etheric, everything. So in that perspective, this plane, this realm, this construct, it's quite something, isn't it? But what does that tell you about what's available to you? What does that tell you about where you might be holding yourself back and unnecessarily imposing boundaries and limits and these invisible barriers, these veils and masks? What does that tell you about the potential of what you could still experience in this life, should you just choose to walk in a slightly different direction? Should you choose differently and keep choosing differently until your brain starts being wired in a slightly different way, your whole neural network across the entire avatar that is your body starts to rewire itself in a certain way. You start embodying a certain different path. What would that be like when you choose differently? Based on everything I've outlined, based on everything that's possible here on this earthly realm, never mind the ideas of somewhere else or some astral thing or whatever else you want to explore and maybe need to escape to, which is up to the individual how they want to experience and express and explore these ideas. But you are here on this earthly plane, which offers so much already. How much more could you possibly need? And why would you want to escape it? Why do you want to dull it, dumb it down, suppress, depress, hide from it? Why don't you want to just simply shift your perspective, and it's a whole different world, whole different presentation. And with the whole fool rebel sort of dichotomy, there's again the perhaps complementary idea of the outside in versus the inside out type of living. The mainstream relies on you to be 100% sold on the ideas being presented, marketed, sold, inculcated, programmed, brainwashed, indoctrinated into you. The rebel, the dissident, the heretic works in the opposite direction. We work first from the inside. We see reality based on our thoughts. We feel through that. It's the reverse by default. And we're constantly fighting that influx of information and ideas and data and that onslaught of imagery, messaging, narratives, mind control, psychological warfare, and all the rest of it. So we got to pick our battle. And again, either way is fine. Neither is right, neither is wrong. What works for you? What resonates with you? What satisfies your soul's capacity and potential and curiosity and wonder and aspiration and need for expression? What is it that satisfies you? What is it that keeps you fired up day to day? What is authentic, real, and true for you? And that's really all that ever matters, regardless of the opinions of people such as myself or others, regardless of priests, pastors, and other authorities, professors, mentors, and the like. All of that is data, all of that is information, all of that is guidance meant only to reflect what's going on inside of you. And you are ultimately the only one that can decide what to do with it, if anything. Whether to take full advantage of it, whether to embrace all that this earthly plane, this earthly earthbound life offers or not. And it doesn't matter. It'll be gone so fast, it will only be a little flicker in some sort of life recall thing, if you want to even call it that. Life review, if you want to even call it that. If that is even what happens. But we do that every single day, don't we? To varying degrees. Some of us put in an awful lot of time and go back and back and back and review and to better integrate ideas, to better force to the surface things we've forgotten about or suppressed or set aside or pushed to the fringes that are still informing and impeding and imposing on our everyday decision making. And maybe that's something that you need to do. Go back and back and back and do that integration process. It's the process of recapitulation, and that's a different spiritual sort of idea as well, which may be quite empowering and may help you overcome certain things and limitations and ideas and blind spots that you have. But just keep on keeping on. Use it or discard it. Fool or rebel, it's up to you. And it's all good either way. Regardless of where we are and everything that we've experienced, any one of these inflection points that we come across, these milestones, these awakenings and such, they're permission slips, as Bashar might have called it back in the day, or probably still does, I'm not sure. They're doors that you can open and walk through just to get to the next thing, the next step, the next aspect and element of the story to experience and experiment with. I think too often we get stuck in reactivity, right? We get stuck in the triggering. And the spiritual adversary, if you want to call it that, the element of this realm that is constantly mirroring, reflecting, and seemingly imposing and assaulting us and our senses and our sensibilities, is equal to any one of those positive forward momentum shifts. Because it is us, of course, who is projecting these things. Maybe it's a future self, maybe it's a natural sort of revealing, unveiling, remembering mechanism, part of the system, something that is endemic to this reality construct for our experience, for our benefit, for our use and exploitation. Even though we may feel, for the most part, that we are being exploited and taken advantage of, manipulated, and all the rest of it, brainwashed, mind controlled, etc., etc. Just some final thoughts on the whole fool and rebel dichotomy. It really doesn't matter where on the spectrum you may find yourself in this life, or if you move across to either side, if you see the light and rediscover for yourself a new identity, a new idea, a new ideology, whatever, belief system, wherever you want to move on that particular range of experience is completely up to you, and whatever matters to you in the moment. There'll be fools for life, there'll be fools that awaken, come across and drag a bunch of the unsuspecting and ill-prepared truthers and the like into the darkness, as it were. They'll fall for the same traps, they'll fall for the same desperate needs of, substitute parents and the like, or authority figures, or this deference that we have that's programmed into us from an early age, depending on your society and cultural exposures and such, and how much you've stepped into your own understanding, comprehension, power, etc. And same idea on the other side of the spectrum. If you're a rebel for life, if you've been a dissident, a heretic, the countercultural sort of attitude, a punk rocker, whatever you want to call it, however you choose to express that, understand you're simply playing a different role. That is accepted. There's room for it. There is accommodations for it in the programming of this construct. There's room for any and all manner of expression here. And it doesn't make you right, regardless of the amount of, fighting tooth and nail and rebelling against the system, standing up against the man, however many times you might go to prison for your ideas or beliefs, however many protests and events you want to organize to fight back, class action lawsuits, whatever, however you choose to play that game and engage with the system. You're simply engaging with something that was already designed and defined well before you existed, and has been the system which is well prepared for any potential eventuality, any potential question or outcome that you may have. You're not coming at it from any sort of original standpoint whatsoever. So, get over yourself if that's what you think you're going to be doing. If you think that you're going to be changing the world and fixing things or awakening humanity or saving anyone, that's not the point of this place. That's for the individual to decide, because you can't save anyone, you can't heal anyone, you can't fix the system that is scripted and will play out in certain ways. These things are well beyond anything of our capacity to make any sort of inroads or alterations and modifications to. So don't waste your time in that perspective. Don't waste your time and your energy and your quite literally unlimited creative prowess, power, potentialities chasing these phantoms and shadows and ghosts, because you'll never be able to grab onto them. You'll never be able to do anything about them. You can dispel them, you can minimize their effects, you can understand what they were, appreciate it, and thus diffuse any effect and influence they may have over you. That's it. You can decide what you're going to do with those ideas. You can decide what you're going to do with that energy. You can decide what you're going to do and how are you going to integrate the notion of these steadfast, perhaps immovable objects, right? You might consider yourself an unstoppable force, as it were, but coming up against an immovable object, you will simply harm and injure and potentially kill yourself prematurely. So just consider where you're going to put that energy. You have unlimited creative power, literally an unlimited fountain of energy that's built into you. Animates your body, animates your avatar, influences your mind and informs your mind and such. So don't waste your time too much beating your head against things that many thousands and thousands have done so before you and continue to do today. Consider how you want to utilize that energy and the limited time that you have here. Fool, rebel, doesn't matter. What resonates with you, what matters to you, what do you prioritize and value? That's all you can consider, and that's all you can decide and choose what to do with. You're not going to surprise anyone when you uncover these dark secrets and shadowy aspects of a society or a culture or a cult or what have you, these ancient sort of societies and families and influences that have been here for millennia. You're not going to surprise anyone who's been researching and well-read in these things for decades. And you're not going to surprise anyone who works in that system, who is of that particular paradigm and belief system and spiritual alignment that you can't relate to because, by default, some will choose the psychopathic, parasitic, predatory expression. You're going to change them? No. All you can do is accept it for what it is, understand that it exists, and that this reality, this construct, this simulation, whatever you want to call it, has accommodations, has made room for that kind of expression. Clearly it's allowed. And I've spoken, my first video in this entire series was called Why, Evil Gets a Free Pass, or the perception, the idea, the perspective that evil seems to get a free pass. Equally, good gets a free pass. And, watch the video. Maybe some useful ideas in there, but I'm not trying to say or excuse terrible, violent, grotesque, disturbing behavior. I'm just saying that it happens. And to deny that reality, to deny that darkness and the most dark, evil, disgusting expressions of what it is to be human, what we're capable of, exists here. It is playing out here. It's not something that we could cancel. It's not something we can erase from collective consciousness. It's not something that we can destroy and negate from existence. You can certainly try, and I think there's probably many who have, but when you look at the manipulators who have co-opted ideas like the New Age movement and the like, you simply co-opted the better intentions of those who are on the light side, if you want to call it that, those such as myself who are inspired to and by default driven and obsessed with amplifying the light, discerning the truth of things, right? Good or bad, truth is truth. It doesn't need to be defended. It's the lies that need constant repetition, right? And we know these cliches. And we can see in the real world how these things play out. The lies are constantly being repeated because they have to. Lies have to be repeated all the time, across every language, across every level of intelligence and understanding and perspective, every belief system, every ideology, etc. There's, operators and agents involved at every level to maintain certain narratives and ideas about this realm because they have to keep lying about it for whatever purpose. Discern for yourself what their motivations might be. Regardless, the dark exists just as much as the light exists. That's the point. That's the duality. That's the polarity. That is the yin and the yang, the feminine, masculine. That is the reason for this earthly existence. That is the reason for this entire construct in the first place. So you can't fight reality. You can't fight the authentic, real, and true nature of where it is you exist. You can only decide which side of that particular scale you're going to feed your energy and spend most of your time on, and where in that spectrum you might catch yourself being tricked and trapped and falling into. And just like the fool can have their head down and put on the goggles and the rosy shades and go through a life completely oblivious to what's true and real according to the rebel, the dissident, the heretic, it doesn't make them wrong for choosing that experience. The heretic might choose, the self-righteous path and battling tooth and nail, living hand to mouth their whole life, struggling to make a buck, struggling to earn a living, struggling because they see the system, they see the transparency of the thing, they see the deception, the distortion, the distractions, and they have to somehow find a way to live amid, through that. And it's exhausting to be constantly combative. It's exhausting, fatiguing, if you're in a constantly negative, biased mindset based on what is being proposed, imposed, and manufactured in front of you. So consider, again, how you are utilizing that unlimited creative spark that is in you, and just be wise about it. Choose differently if you're constantly angry, fatigued, frustrated, lonely, broke, however these things are manifesting and presenting themselves and mirroring back in real time in life out there for you. That's information, that's data, that's more ways to just take in that information and to realign, to reassess, to sit with yourself, to realign again with what is real and authentic and true about you, which can only come from within, inside out, living from the feeling of your thoughts, not living from the reaction of what the world is presenting. Just think about that for a minute. It'll make sense the more you kind of sit with it, to realign and give a little more energy to that toroidal in-out as opposed to the out-in. They're both happening all the time concurrently. That's how our energy field works. It's going down, up, and out, as well as the reverse. That's the amazing thing about our very nature, the energetic, metaphysical, spiritual, energetic, etheric blended with the physical anatomy, the avatar, and the physical expression. And so it is individually, within, so it is without, above and below. And of course, the most important idea is that all is mind. So reclaim that agency, that autonomy, that authorship, which I say probably in every video because I need to remind myself just as often as I say it. And that's why I make these videos. They're basically notes to self, right? And I share them because the idea, the goal, the hope, if I don't like the word hope, the aim is to offer something that might have some little nuggets and wisdoms, some little trigger effect, some sort of reminder, remembering aspect of it that'll trigger something deep within you to reinitiate, reinstigate, to reignite that original spark. That's the whole point. Take from it what you will, discard the rest. Have a good one.
It's been coming down every other day. But they tell me we are in drought season. That's not my story, not my reality. No matter what you force my eyes to see. And the sky is falling right on top of me. But they tell me it's for the greater good.